Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com.
You sure?
My name is Neil.
He's
Very sure about that. Joined in Grandma's Couch Studio by the decorated, enthusiastic, Jellin.
Have a coffee cake in my hand.
There is still a stack of coffee cakes.
I think Neil was having adverse reactions to cinnamon, the other podcast.
He's
all choked up.
We did just get done shooting the American Hustle podcast. If you don't know, you should know. It's a good podcast about what makes SFJ 4x4 so different. It is a spinoff. It does not talk Jeep. It talks leadership and entrepreneurship and personal development.
Yep.
But no, I honestly think I'm having a problem with the thickness of the air, the heat, the impending
doom.
The doom
Yes.
that's coming. And we'll talk about that a little bit today in today's podcast.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, we will be talking, it's not really a spoiler, we're contextualizing. And we're going to be talking about the potentiality for pop-up storms, the heat wave that is coming, that's gripping our nation, and specifically in our area. That translates into
When
AC problems, overheating problems, and soft top on, top off water
when it
problems.
says a 30% chance and you're in your Jeep with no top on and just rains over you kind of scenario.
Yeah, we're going to be talking all about that today. We're going to talk about that today.
Yes.
But you gentlemen are whom? As you got coffee cake in your mouths.
Mad scientist.
The maddest mad scientist,
The
Doc Brown.
arms deep into a JK motor this morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we appreciate that.
I'm Jeff Tremonti.
You're just Jeff.
Just
Jeff.
Nothing exciting over there.
That's right. But exciting news, Giaga Jeepers is first today. Good morning,
He's got
SFJ.
first.
Chip, good morning. And Amy is saying good morning as well.
Absolutely. Good morning. Yeah, we're still working through this this package of coffee cakes. We've eaten the real coffee cakes. We got cinnamon rolls. We had muffins. We've eaten all this stuff. Now we're eating the shelf-stable stuff. And I thought it was so funny last week when after we received all of this.
I like to accidentally do things a lot.
And I was dying when you kind of there was a realization. You had an epiphany.
A
and
light
you were
bulb went off.
And you were like,
and I
man.
said, I think I've been eating coffee cake with my lunch for a year. But it's not called coffee cake at my wife's work. So I didn't realize a cinnamon streusel was
coffee cake
until I was at Bantam and
Hold
going.
the box back up
The
for
box
a second.
literally says
Coffee
cakes on it.
I didn't reid that part. I'm a man.
I didn't read that.
That's
part.
the big bold letters.
I love somebody
He
brought
read the
us.
fine print that said cinnamon streusel.
He did, and I love all of these came streaming in. These different varieties and brands of the manufacturers of these
The
different.
problem is my wife is such an organized person. The box goes away instantly. So then I just have these in a little bin.
You just have,
And they just say Baker Street. They don't say coffee cake.
So then the only thing he associated was cinnamon streusel. I was there, and I'm so thankful that I was when the light bulb went off, and you kind of murmured, kind of quietly, I think I've been eating these the whole time. And it was nobody addressed it at the time. And now with our live audience and with our listeners at home, our podcast listeners,
Scott Brown,
we are all getting to experience Scott's idiosyncrasies.
Yes.
I think I've been eating those the whole time.
Yes. Speaking of idiosyncrasies of Scott, and I'm going to just say, maybe this one's on me, I don't know. But when we were coming back from Bantam, and this weekend I was driving, and there was some, on the back roads, I'll just say, before I tell the story.
Oh, no.
And it made me think of riding back with you guys, and I want to know what our audience thinks. When you're driving down the road and somebody in the back seat yells, "Deer," what do you do?
Mm.
Because Scott and you just keep driving and keep talking.
Yeah.
And so I yell, "Deer" again. And you guys go, What are you talking about? Nobody's slowing down.
No.
There's still a deer up
I
there.
do like more context of hey, there's a deer in
Hey.
the field
Deer up on your right.
on the left.
So
My
There's
wife
a
does,
deer 100 yards ahead.
and I'm more used to my wife because she points when she yells deer. And I also don't see those ones 98% of the time.
I grew
Luckily, Bambi runs away from my Jeep.
I grew up driving on roads with deer constantly, and it was always the thing of you shout deer, the driver slows down, and then you say where the deer's at.
Well, I know a guy that speeds up, but that's just, it's the saying. It all depends on what company you're in.
Well, that's true too.
The company you keep. I don't know.
Chip says hit the brakes.
Here's the thing. Anybody in the back seat shouldn't be yelling anything as far as I'm concerned. So shut up and sit down back there. That's all I care about.
Everybody in the front was perfectly happy.
Everybody in the front was perfectly content.
And no deers were hurt.
No. You could be yelling cow. It could have been behind us. I don't know.
I know people have hit cows, so yeah, there's a thing.
I was just looking out for your Jeep and trying not to have you smash up your new Jeep.
You know how many deer I've hit in my life? I mean, just hit and just decimated.
0 for me.
You've hit 0.
You said it now. It's going to happen.
How many have you hit?
1.
How is that possible? I'm like a magnet.
Because I slow down when someone says deer.
In my defense, the one that I actually hit jumped from behind a house in front of me. It was like a deer drive-by.
Maybe there's some reality in this conversation because realistically, I've plowed some deer, man. I'm not gonna lie.
And see, my wife's supporting me. 2 people we know that have hit cows.
I have
hit a deer too.
I promise you. I promise our listeners at home. I promise that I have hit no less than 6 deer in my life, and I probably hit more than that. I'll be honest. Yeah. I'm somewhere between 6 and 10, and I did not know that we were going to have this conversation, so I did not prepare myself accordingly. But I have absolutely mowed down.
Notes.
Yes, I know, and I know it. I know I've mowed down 6 to 10, and that's just trucks, Jeeps, cars, vans.
You can just drive home afterwards.
Absolutely.
And my wife did it with a Subaru, and I mean, it drove home, but it was very much worse for wear.
Right, right. Oh man, that is so funny. Deer. No, maybe we found the root of the issue.
That's why I put the metal front bumper on.
There you go.
Yeah. Golly. Wow. I actually called the game warden one time. I took the deer home and I ate them. That's a true story. That's a true story. You can write that one down. I wasn't letting them go to waste. That's just there's starving people out there. So
the one I hit ran away.
No, I mow them down. I'm telling you. So
good morning, Keith.
Yeah, lots of people out there. We appreciate joining in and everything. Bill McWilliams as well. Good morning, guys. So big weekend, weekend for you guys. Obviously, first I want to be the first person on air to say wish you guys happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Both
Same
of you
to you.
are. Thank you so much. Decorated fathers.
I could not help myself this weekend when you sent out the group message.
I saw
Happy
it.
Father's Day.
Yeah,
and I just replied what he said with arrows.
Classic Jeff. Classic Jeff. Just
I'm exerting very little effort.
There's so many Jeffisms at this point. My kids are in on it at home at this point.
Oh, that's okay.
Jeff would do that.
We can't walk. Every time we walk through our field to check on our trees and stuff, my wife falls in the tracks that Jeff left in my yard. And something is uttered that I can't say on
Something
air.
is uttered. And the best part is my kids know it too. The non-utterance.
Yes.
My kids, it'll be something like, and I'll read something off
At
like
this
the
point, it's
text
just a
thread.
mutter.
It's just a mutter, and my kids are in on it. My wife's in on it. Which just like, I don't even remember what it was. Something the other day, we lost money on something or other, and it was like, oh man, it might as well have been Jeff doing that. And somebody in my house
If you
was
don't
like,
have
DJ, you know what I mean?
If you don't have a fall guy at your workplace, are you really doing work?
Oh my goodness. Well,
Good morning, Daddy Jeep.
I do want to wish everyone at home, happy Father's Day. Obviously, this is an impactful little holiday celebrated, largely because of the association with our Jeeps, the grandfather of the off-road industry, and now subsequently all of our Wranglers as such. But I also want to take a moment and say happy Father's Day to my father. I did actually spend the entire day with him, but kind of as a public decoration. Without his unconditional support and love and his appreciation for these vehicles, because he was not a mechanic. I've never hid never hidden that from anyone. He was a school teacher who couldn't make ends meet. Is really what it comes down to with these automotive vehicles. So we learned to wrench and do things, and went to all the shows, and he really instilled the love and desire to build this into something, and they obviously continue to support all of us here and try to, kind of provide guidance and kind of that familia love within, a professional and arguably corporate workplace. So,
yep.
Big Father's Day to him as well. Anything? Do you guys have a weekend Father's Day experience that you want to share?
So my wife asked, "What do you want to do for Father's Day?" And I said, "Drive my car."
Absolutely.
So she had to work both morning, Saturday and Sunday. So we spent Saturday afternoon together, ran around a little bit with the car, and then Sunday, while she was at work, the kids made me breakfast.
Nice. Which consisted of what?
So it was real cute because they started to
cinnamon streusel.
To try to make what we call in our house dippy eggs.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is over medium for everybody else. And
over
that
but...
the egg went wrong. Completely understand.
Yeah.
So they pivoted and made French toast. And it was actually really good.
Okay.
So, and my thing was like one was a little soggy, which also have done. And I told Amy, my wife, later, I was like, no, I can't complain because at his age, I could barely microwave something. So I am totally impressed.
Oh my God. I mean, 5 years ago, you'd burn water and macaroni and cheese.
Pretty much. I asked my wife how to boil water. That happened.
That's true. It's a true story.
And they brought it up on a platter. They had, a glass of lemonade.
We talk about the Jeffisms, jeez.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And
you're okay, Jeff. You're in good company. Don't worry.
The holdover from the dippy eggs was I had toast with my French toast because they were full committed at that point.
There was full commit.
There was toast had happened.
Toast.
Presenting the toast.
I love it.
So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then I was able to put the tailpipes on the 36 finally now that I have a back window. So that it was pointed out earlier that if I put the tailpipes on without a back window, that'd probably asphyxiate us because it would suck the fumes into the car. So it's actually safer to have the exhaust out of the car. But what it was amazing.
It's actually probably true.
It is true. That's the sad part. But I've gone through this a couple times in my mechanical car life, and that tailpipes quiet down a car, but you don't know it until you experience it. I cannot get over how much quieter the cabin of the car is.
So do you like it a little quieter?
Oh my goodness, it's life-changing.
Really?
It sounded more hot rod before.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's really what I'm saying. Or are you going for a cruiser or are you going for a hot rod?
But at the same time, at some point, a hot rod, you want it, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, it's loud, and you don't want to drive it anymore. So this was great.
Okay.
I'm glad I
nice,
experienced
happy
both
medium,
sides.
Is what you're saying.
It still sounds great out the back, but man, what a difference inside the cabin. So I'm very glad that I did it on my back in the garage. And the problem was why the tailpipes wouldn't fit before is they were hitting the floor. On the sedan, it's a little shape different. And so I used all the pipe I had. I ended up taking a piece off the end of the tailpipe and then welded that in the middle to extend it over top of the axle, and then it's all one piece. Now, where the clamp would have the bend, it was literally going to be buried into the floor. We're talking like pieces of cardboard spacing and things to make it work. And the only thing I don't love about it is the tailpipes are coming down at a downward angle, but they're equal. They're spaced this way the same, up and down the same. And eventually, if I feel so compelled,
You'll straighten them out
I'll straighten them out a little bit.
Interesting.
But it was one of those moments where you were like, I am not going to the store. I am not going to purchase anything.
Yeah.
I have good quality pipe and a welder and some know-how.
Yes.
And I'm going to make this work.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Very
nice.
nice.
I know exactly the scenario. I know the aesthetic. I didn't see it per se. I don't know. Do you have pictures of the pipes coming out on?
Yes.
Up on your social?
On the Instagram and Facebook. They are both.
All right. I must have missed the pipes coming out because I
even did a running video.
Nice.
I personally too.
don't love the downward. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're
I
talking
want
about
'em to
because
come
that's
out
what
more
guys.
straight.
Yeah, I want them to come out straight. I want them to be the straightness of the body line.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's done. It's there. You weren't making it more complicated, and it's oftentimes what we talk about. When we make the job harder than it needs to be, then
Yes.
it almost never gets done.
Correct.
Right, and so you
And
got to start somewhere.
I actually referenced that at the car show, that I've been holding this car to a very high quality caliber, and now it's kind of like, what can I get done between car shows and driving it to make the experience better?
Well,
and sometimes you have to not put the screw in, and you're down a screw in one spot, or the tailpipes are not angled the exact way you'd like it to be. But the difference is now I'm driving it to the car show and enjoying it. And it's a kind of torn thing because I've tried to do everything exactly the way I want to, and now it's kind of like, and I just want to drive it.
Yeah, and I've tried to support your continued posting, at least just kind of from a distance, and kind of liking or loving or commenting on some of your stuff.
Yeah,
because I think it's so valuable. Because oftentimes that happens, and then we just start driving it, and we never really circle back to
right.
Like Chuck Norris, God love him, never had the front locker hooked up.
Yep.
He just did everything he needed to do, arguably in two-wheel drive, other than climb a stump. But with I just never got the air locker fully fitted up,
Yeah.
and it always just has hung over my head.
Yeah.
To
You
this
just have
point.
to make yourself keep working on it.
And you have to keep working on it, which I think is impressive that you are continuing to pick
what
away
I'm
at some of these
doing
little
now
projects.
is saying, okay, honey, what do I need to work on next? And she kind of throws the ball up and says, see if you can do this, see if you can do that. Like sun visors, those are kind of nice.
Yeah,
when you're driving into the sun,
into the sunset, especially
So,
after a car cruise or something.
that's we're currently working on that. It was funny. I got the car all prepped so they can actually bolt in. And when I didn't get any sun visors with the car. And when you buy them, they're just literally frames that are open. And so they're the metal part. And I walked into the house and said, okay, I did my part. Now you make them look like sun visors.
Nice. Now, and just while we kind of set a standard on air for all of our listeners, do you have an anticipated event to attend in the future? Can we look forward to you preparing to go to Trog or of something of similar caliber? So we put this on the map, like Jeffrey's trailer build for Iowa those years ago.
Right.
Do you have something we can follow along and encourage you to get this car ready to go?
So there is a show or two shows that I want to try to do that's kind of close to home that'll kind of make me feel safe because it's in kind of the state. One is the Rust Belt Revival in Youngstown in October. I've gone a couple of years in a row now with the Rambler. That's where I blew the rear end out of the Rambler. And I really want the car to be there. There's a lot of traditional old school hot rods there. And then there's another one called the Rockabilly Ruckus. That's, I think it's in Menor. I have not attended that show yet, but it's also traditional customs hot rods that I really want to do. Now, with that said, I need to look at when the dates are and get planning.
Okay, so no New Jersey beaches for you in the future.
Not this year.
Okay.
I want to get things a little bit more figured out.
Fair.
I really want door panels so that the doors and the windows and all that stuff don't rattle as bad as they do.
Fair.
But the way it's running, I don't see any reason why I can't do stuff like that in the future. I've also, it's been years, at least 10, if not more, because time goes fast. I would really like to take it back down to, or that car to Good Guys Columbus. Is something I used to do as a family with my parents. And, but that also means that I have to like get registered and join Good Guys again and all that stuff that I've had lapsed because I hadn't had a car worthy on my fields to go to. But we'll see. Again, now that's a next year goal. I want it to be a little bit nicer. I don't want to hear the terrible word rat rod uttered by someone in
fair.
discerning. So I want to try to make it look as good as I can.
Good Guys is a tough crowd for that.
100%, especially for that car.
It's a hot rod crowd.
It's a street rod.
Street rod. Right.
And everybody's gone to like muscle cars on big billet wheels. So I think the traditional hot rod's kind of get lost on that.
Right. You don't want them to. You want to give them any reason to think that it's a rat rod. Jeffrey, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was pretty good. We did a nice picnic over at my parents' house with my brother-in-law and sister. They're in from Guam, so had a nice Father's Day picnic there. That was pretty much the
Did you move any more cement pavers?
No.
So Jeffrey worked out his 1-ton big rig over last week.
Yeah, I used it as a 1-ton. Had 2,000 pounds of hauling equipment in the back of the truck.
Allegedly. We do everything safe here.
Safety first.
Yes.
Yeah, allegedly.
So Jeffrey and I pulled a pretty solid stint. With our week leading up to Bantam, then through Bantam, then the week thereof, and of course the downtime is not super advantageous for us. So Jeffrey's day off, he hauled a couple pounds of cement pavers in the back of the big rig. So.
And we did that. They dug all that out this week, so luckily I didn't have to help with the digging. I'm good with that.
Perfect.
You're a wheel man.
Yeah. I will happily load and unload those pavers if I don't have to do that digging, because it was all through like a hard packed rock.
Oh dear.
Yeah. No thanks. So Saturday night I actually went to we did an event meeting for.
Did you go to the drive-in again?
We ended up not going.
I know you invited us, and I really want to, kind of publicly say I appreciate that. And I was trying to find out what to do with my family, and instead we just worked our fingers to the nubbin, which we actually enjoy as a family.
Yeah.
But
No,
regardless.
it ended up. We didn't have any solid confirmation that anyone else was going, and the kids were not behaving for Kristen while I was at work Saturday. So we're like, well, I guess you didn't earn it. We're not going to go.
Right.
But I did go to Erie for an event meeting for Heavenly Heartstrings, and we met at room 33 where our next event will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've been there yet. It is a speakeasy. You kind of have to walk through the bookcase.
Oh, yes. I've heard about it.
It is very, very nice little place. Not huge.
Sure.
Very small seating capacity, but they have a built-in stage, built-in audio system. They have live music all the time there. They actually, and you'll really appreciate this, they have a movie screen that they'll put up. It's a projector screen.
Yeah.
And they'll play black and white old movies.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Sometimes the movie will just be playing while there's music playing.
Yeah.
Just no audio to the movies.
Right.
Films.
Yeah, you'll be running a silent film and play something in the background. Just adds to the mystique, the nostalgia, the romance of it,
Yep. And obviously we talked about the Mafia Mall. I was just
the Mafia Museum in Las Vegas that I know you I'm going to make sure you get there this year for SEMA. You know what I mean? We got to build it into the schedule. I know that I did it on our day off after you guys flew out. I was there for one extra day.
Yeah.
We head up to Mafia Museum. We only had 2 hours there. You could easily do the entire day.
Oh, I'm sure.
You easily do it. But yeah, it's got to imagine similar.
Well, they have drinks, like they have an Al Capone drink.
Yeah.
And it's, just really good mixes.
How cool.
So
that is very cool. Yeah, that sounds good. And then you just the picnic was Sunday, or?
Yeah, the picnic was Sunday, and it looks like Daddy Jeep's actually been to room 33. His son has played there, and
awesome.
I've been going since it opened. I know the owner really well. Very smart businesswoman. During COVID, pivoted her model. Now actually owns Blind Tiger, which is non-alcohol drinks, non-alcohol spirit mixes, and she sells those at like all the grocery stores and everything. But they had a mobile truck during COVID because you couldn't have people in your business for bars and restaurants. So
good for her. Way to adapt and overcome.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
That's the true American spirit there. For us, we were everywhere and everything. Mechanically speaking, and just kind of as our own relative celebration of Father's Day, nothing made me happier than to put power tools in my children's hands and let them just tear up our family homestead. And so there was, weed whipping and leaf blowing and power washing and my whole family, my wife, my son, my daughter, my parents, everybody was engaged in this whole charade of just like everything non-toxic masculinity, which is, fantastic, right? We just did it as a whole family group.
I saw lots of JLU towing trailer in Pontiac.
JLU was just running constantly.
I was like, oh, there goes Jen. Oh, wait, no, now she's going that way, and she doesn't have a trailer now. Well, she had a trailer that way. Now she doesn't.
Oh, yeah. And we built a little water setup,
cool.
which is how we're navigating our garden. Our garden. So we have the trees we've talked about in the past, and we put in the orchard, and we've got this massive, beautiful sitting garden that we're building. And while we are doing some of the legal eagle components with the septic and the foundation and those other components, that we are turning our storage unit into what's legally called real property, right? Yeah. So that process, while we're working through the minutia of that, those dotting I's, crossing T's, we have all this garden work going on, and we enjoy that. And so much like I built the original furnace for the shop back in 15, which is this kind of oddly elaborate waste oil burner, I'm kind of enjoying building this water hauling system and doing it on a budget and figuring out how to make things work. And first it was a gravity system, and
using what you got,
using what we've got, and what we know, right? And so I've got a IBC poly tote, just under 300 gallons, so a 275 gallon. Now, interesting thing about water, get into minutia, it's about 8 pounds per gallon.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to be really conscientious of the fact that at 100 pounds or 100 gallons, you're running 800 pounds.
Yep.
So, kind of continue that. So at 200 gallons, you're running 1,600 pounds, and the little garden trailer we've got is probably
a little upset.
Not the best. And our listeners know we've talked about tires.
Yeah.
I took a moment to look at the tire date on that little trailer. Oof. Oof is right.
Let me guess, 15 years old?
15 years old. On the nose, Jeffrey.
Fine. Everything's fine.
So, Scott, you're going to love
familiar
this.
with your trailers and maintenance. That's how I was able to guess that.
Yeah. Woo, buddy. So.
Felt like we just got that yesterday.
Yeah. So, I swear that trailer is just acquired that.
Yeah. It's fine.
So one of the things that you're going to like in my pursuit of trailerdom, obviously if you were at Bantam, you saw that the Comanche show trailer has kind of made its first road trip. We're going to continue to pull that together for attending events near and far. There's obviously some trailers that I want to upchurch in the process.
It's first road trip going to Bantam when we're already running late, and you're like, you just got to get us there on time. I'm like, no problem. And we get up to speed, and you go, by the way, I don't know how this is going to track yet.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea. No idea.
Sounds great. We'll find out.
Fantastic.
That's why Jeff's a wheel man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the trailer did spectacular.
It did.
So we're doing that, but I thought you would find it fun that as part of my Father's Day, I'm pulling out the Ford trailer.
Oh, cool.
I want to kind of work that back into the mix, and arguably I'd like to use it as a relatively dedicated water hauler.
That's cool.
And this water system has now got a little 12-volt pump on it. We took the whole gravity system, runs through a series of valves, runs into a little Amazon 12-volt pump that actually puts out, I promise you, just under 6 gallons per minute.
Wow.
Off of a little 12-volt
You'll be all
water
set
pump.
to help me with my well.
and it's been super fun. So I've got this little water hauling apparatus that I'm, building and putting together, and it was something the kids helped me with this weekend, and we're working by headlight and headlamp and flashlight, and sun up to sundown. We're just cruising. So
nice.
Really, really nice. But with water in mind and heat.
Yes.
And a little bit of the heat exhaustion that I may or may not have experienced this weekend that Jeffrey and I were talking about.
Cinnamon overload.
Cinnamon overload. It is valuable to say that many of our listeners are driving potentially convertible vehicles.
Yes.
Or are acquainted with convertible vehicles.
Yes.
All right? And so ultimately...
And they may not be doing what I'm doing with the AC on cold. and the hard top on.
You know what's
Nobody's doing
interesting? And you know what?
You know
I think
what?
we may talk about heating and cooling issues of our Jeeps next
Yeah.
week in lieu, as far as a response of this week.
Oh yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you guys, I have embraced. So my geriatric elderly dog goes everywhere with us now because of his anxiety issues, and I have embraced. There's going to a number of car shows over the years. There is a number of trucks, and specifically trucks, who have cats who go to shows with them. Now, 100% exactly why or what that is, but they have cats, and some have dogs. And the trucks will sit there and run the whole time and run the AC.
Yeah.
And over the past month, I have embraced this with my old geriatric dog that we just run Jennifer's JLU and we run it and the AC stays on. And with what's called a PWM fan, for those who are listening at home, the fan modulates.
Yeah.
It's very different than our old school
Yeah.
viscous clutch fans or
Yes.
E-fan assemblies with a hard mounted fan.
On or off.
And so the vehicle can actually sit there so long as it's appropriately working the way that it's supposed to, and just
with no airflow almost.
with no airflow sit there on arguably some of the hottest days and cool itself.
Yeah.
And
It's
within
amazing.
within reason, it's kind of no different than if you have, central AC or a window unit and animals at home with that purpose. So
Yep.
That's just kind of one of those things I've accepted as true. If I'm Scott Brown with a hard top and doors.
Well, Chuck's over here saying it's motorcycle weather, so and I gotta say, I mean,
true.
Between motorcycles and just the top off Jeeps, I've seen more of them in the last 2 days than I would say even last summer. Period.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Well.
everybody's taking the Jeeps apart and getting ready to go.
And and I love seeing now, for us, I have fully accepted that I am a stripped down. I want no top. I want no doors. I don't want half doors necessarily.
Yeah, you're all in.
I'm all in, and I recognize that.
Couldn't be farther from a Scott experience.
Correct. And
I literally said at our family picnic that I have AC as long as I'm moving.
And that is what's critically valuable for our Jeep owners at home, is that we have so many variations of how we get to enjoy our Jeeps. And so in Scott's situation, he has AC and the windows up and the hard top on. For Jeffrey and I, we're doorless, topless, and we may or may not get caught in the weather because of this.
Yep.
Right?
Constantly.
And
so you need a wife to buy you a birthday gift of a cover for your Jeep, because that's what happened to me.
And you may take impromptu stops.
Well, and so it's valuable. We're actually
At
probably
that point,
I
I just drive through it, get home, and then cover.
Well, and so I think that it's interesting that we take a moment to address the different covers that are available, because and or methods that happen when the rain hits or when it doesn't hit. And how do we navigate that? Because in our industry, we have people like Jeff and I, and then we have people like you, right?
Yeah.
If that is our barometer, how do we experience it? So there's authentically, I remember an individual that I would see them. I wish I would have been in a position that I could have talked to them, because that Jeep sat outside and they never covered it. I remember driving past and seeing 6 inches of snow in the Jeep. And then later that day, knowing that the Jeep had moved, that it had driven them to work or somewhere, basically seeing it, kind of dusted out or cleaned off and back in its spot going. And there's still snow on the ground, but they did not have a top. Like, that person is full commit, know?
Oh, yeah.
And they're just never covering it. It was a little TJ Wrangler. To having a cover, is that just a tarp? Back in the day, we just threw a tarp over these things. Then there's a number of loose air venting covers. Then we have the really high quality cover that we were using at Bantam on my dad's LJ. I don't know what you have, Jeffrey, as far as whether yours is like a super tight fit one like we had on the LJ, or it's more the loose one that I have for mine.
So it's surprisingly a tight fit. It's got elastic on the windshield and on the back.
Okay.
And then it's got the clips that like what your dad's have
Okay,
on the
so
sides.
it's more that because my dad and I made the mistake 20 years ago, and we bought. It was not waterproof; it was water resistant,
Yep.
Yeah.
which is what I have the big one for my LJs and my TJs. That's water resistant. It can still pool in sections and drip, whereas it sounds like this one is a little bit more of a thicker material that you're talking about.
Not as thick of material as your dad's, but it's
But similar
it's
enough.
a cheaper
So-
product,
so
but
it's-
still good enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's of similar. So it's almost in between the two.
Yes.
And then we have your actual soft tops, which you can have frameless soft tops. You can have full frames, soft tops.
Yep.
Then we have our power tops.
Yep.
Don't forget the Sunrider ones.
We have just the Sunrider options. And then
Then we have our old school traditional bikini tops.
then you have your bikinis, that are just a kind of a form fit sunshade unit.
and
then you have your hard tops,
and,
right?
Well, and then you have your perforated bikini or shadish.
Well, that's what
So-
Jeffrey's got on his.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
the sunshade because Kristen was worried about exactly what Joe's in the comments saying. My doors are off, but the roof stays on because I burn too easy. Kristen was worried about sun exposure for the kids and for
Right.
herself when we're stopped at lights and such. So we did the alien sunshade, honestly, and it's held up really well. I've had that in for
Yeah.
a couple of years, I think.
I had
sure.
one of those for the JK.
And it's interesting, like Joe's talking about the doors off. I would oftentimes throw the hatch open on the Jeep. Now, I don't exactly recommend that. The glass on the
Yeah.
hardtop.
Just pulling all the exhaust back in.
You're allowing the exhaust to kind of funnel back into the Jeep, and it actually kind of creates a wind tunnel where it actually pulls the exhaust and it doesn't have the opportunity to vent upward.
Yeah.
Additionally, with that, it sticks up above your roof line. And so if you're backing into something or around something, you now have an obstacle that you don't normally have, and you
Yeah.
could break your rear window glass. And it's a little hard on the struts and the strut mounting uniballs because it's not really meant to be operated in that
Right.
orientation.
Going down bumpy roads.
Going down bumpy roads. Now, with all that said, I've done it, and
It'll be okay.
it'll be okay.
Yeah.
One of those situations.
That's because we push things to the extreme.
No. So we have all of these. We have all of these options,
Yep.
right? And yet, I'm constantly amazed how many people race to Facebook with a picture of them soaking wet.
Yep.
And are like, I got caught in the rain.
Well, because
What do I do?
most of us have, like Amy CJ, and there's no interior room. So we have an emergency cover, but it's in the garage.
Yes.
The bikini's on, the doors are off. So if we're going to go out for a distance, then we're just going to get wet if it happens. It just is part of life. And then we have the old school bikini. So if it rains and you're sitting still, it becomes a lake,
Yes.
which we may or may not have had experience with a couple times.
You're parking with the motorcycles under the bridge now, aren't you?
Sometimes.
And that's exactly my
That
wife's
happens.
like, just park under the bridge, find
Yeah.
a
That's
gas
just my
station.
impromptu stop.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Giaga Jeepers is in here saying their YJ's never had a top on it, but they did put a sunscreen on to keep from being sunburnt.
Yes, and that's how my dad's is ran as well.
And
in
Lee
the
says,
process.
"Embrace the rain."
and so and honestly, it's so
There's
funny.
another Jeep Life shirt.
It is, right? It could absolutely be embrace the rain. I love that. Because that was actually one of the things I was prefacing. My wife was asking about our podcast topics and whatnot, and she was like, it's just part of enjoying the experience. Like, find joy in the fact that it's raining,
Yeah.
right? And instead of kind of being begrudging about it,
Right.
Jeffrey was talking about driving home, hammer down and drive home. You'd be surprised. A lot of the rain, if it's light enough, will actually kind of because of wind force.
Even when
You're-
it's not.
If you've got a back seat in there, the passengers may get wet. But
They absolutely
the driver's compartment is
front
pretty
people
dry.
are pretty good, unless you're kneeling the windshield's down. Then
Well,
results might vary.
I've absolutely done that.
Yeah.
100%.
He was staying hydrated.
It's amazing how much whip over the windshield
That
the
wind
rain will
force.
go.
Oh yeah.
It is remarkable. And so I actually had an experience. the challenge I had, I was driving the 48 one summer, and I got caught in a pop-up storm. And again, the relevancy to this is, while we have these record temperatures that are sweeping the nation, certainly around the Great Lakes region, pop-up storms are not uncommon when you have a large body of water, because all of that heat draws the moisture up, creating humidity in the air, and then you get the air so saturated that it just breaks and rains back down. You're welcome for your meteorologist 101 for the day, Jeep Life Talk. But it's not unusual for us to want to be doorless, topless, and then get caught in the pop-up storm, right? And so, my wife's thing was like, well, if you're willing enough, get out and dance in the rain, enjoy yourself, and you're already wet, and just embrace the rain, as Leah's saying, and just own it, And so I was commuting in the 48 years ago, and I had the windshield up, right? But the 48 did not go fast enough for me
to go up over.
For it to go up and over.
Yeah.
And instead, it was actually, and I could not see because I could not get the wipers to go fast enough to to satisfy this torrent of downpour.
Wipers
I was
on
going
a
to say,
two-way,
even if you're doing 70 on the highway and it's downpouring hard enough, you're leaning your head out trying to see.
You are absolutely leaning your head.
Your wipers don't work on the inside.
Yes.
No.
And that
and
is
it sucks
exactly,
it back around.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly correct. So I remember I couldn't see, and I've told this story before, so God forbid. I couldn't see, and I had my head out the windshield, and I hydroplaned. And I just hydroplaned right up into somebody's front yard. But as I was spinning, because of these big fat, swampy tires that I was spinning, and I hydroplaned right up into the person's yard. And again, it's a 48 Willie, so it's not going super fast.
No.
I actually managed to keep moving in forward progress. I did a true, genuine 360, but I was still maintaining like a forward direction.
Oh, yeah.
And so as I kind of regained speed, I just plopped the front windshield down, and I just kept driving. I have thought about that person's front yard my entire life.
That Jeep doesn't weigh anything. It's fine.
No, I drove by a couple times later, and it was like, just a little bit of something in the yard. Not a true
It wasn't
turfy.
a Jeff. Turf.
No, it was not a Jeff turfing where he left his mark,
Years later.
And I've thought about that person's yard.
You're not the only yard.
I promise
sure
you,
I'm not.
that was 2006. So we're going on 18 years.
Yeah.
I think about that person's yard from that summer. But I was grabbing gears. I couldn't see. I threw the windshield down because it would just be easier that way. And I just pedaled down at that point. I was a teenager. Whatever.
The hardest part in that
I don't know.
situation
Maybe it
is
was longer than that.
the raindrops sting a little bit.
Yeah, they were there. I mean, it's like being a motorcyclist, right?
Yes.
But at least you have four tires. And I was sharing that somebody online had said, that they were interested in getting their motorcycle's license, but they were scared. They would literally use the word cowardice, and so I was like, well, that's literally why I drive a Jeep, is I can get that motorcycle-esque experience. It will never be the same. I did have a bike years ago, and I loved it. And that's a different experience when you're just so intimately on top of this motor and machine, right? It's different, but it's
close.
It's close, and in the rain, you can pass the motorcyclists who are hunkered down underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
Because you have the stability of four tires and wheels, I was not a teenager in 06. Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to remember. That's what I'm trying to remember. So maybe it was older. Maybe it was before 06. Maybe it was because I'm trying to think.
We're at that age where things blend in together.
Stop it. Stop it.
I'm just going to say, I'm loving that you absolutely got called out on age right there.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
So Jaga Jeeper says they get more water in the JK with the Freedom panels off than the YJ with no top.
It's interesting. It's got to be something with how the wind curls over the windshield.
We were totally having this conversation over the weekend as we were driving around in the 36 with all the windows down. And we don't get that buffering woof, 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 woof noise that totally happens with like my wife's car or
a newer vehicle that's sealed up really well.
The Rubicon with the back door, like Evie put her window down and it was just beating
Oh,
your
yeah.
ears in.
Isn't that funny how well they're sealed?
And yes, and Amy's like, we don't have that problem in this. I was like, well, it's
Yeah.
When they designed the shape of that car, they did not think that's aerodynamic.
No.
No, it was like, that's stylish.
That is very stylish. It's a cool car, honestly.
And at least, and she did say, well, you drive a brick. It's a more aerodynamic brick than most.
Yeah, and I think it's sealed well as well, and that's part of the
That's why you start to notice that stuff.
So as we talk about the different types of tops as well, so we're really going with the extremes of totally topless and doorless to full top on. If we talk about a little bit of the style of tops and the impending rainstorm, and you said so those of us who go completely topless,
yeah.
I have the ability to throw my cover on. Now, the one thing I was lamenting with my father over the weekend was I unpacked my full Jeep cover out of this little satchel that was like 10 by 12, and my that big fancy cover that Dad's LJ has was equally tightly compact.
Same as ours.
It's like trying to put one of those expanding mattresses back in the package that you received.
And why do we keep the little pouch?
The little pouch?
It's never going back
worthless.
in there.
It's
ever.
worthless. I just actually upsets me when I come across that pouch. I throw it on the ground because it's worthless.
Silly.
And the thing is, so I do stuff my big cover down in behind the footwell of one of my one of the rear seats. Now, I'm also not trying to make my kids go anywhere in the vehicle.
That, and you're not exactly doing freeway speeds.
That's
where floor mats become
levitating,
device.
Right?
So mine's currently under the back seat of the Gladiator.
Okay,
that doesn't count.
So you did
That's
wad
cheating.
yours up and pack it down enough?
Ish.
That's cheating.
She says, I want to see this. I want a picture or it's not true situation,
well,
right? And we're going to try and put that picture out there.
That's unfair because that's trapped. You got to put it in the back of a Wrangler and then deal with it becoming a parachute.
Becoming a parachute. And I've absolutely had it before where you're driving and it's like, whoop, 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 and it gets a little bit bigger and you're like, oh, I'm actually going to have to pull over for this, So then we had the Rampage frameless soft tops, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
No.
Okay. So if you're a person who's considering a different soft top option,
if you didn't realize that Rampage, that you were going to have trouble.
Oh, you know what? It wasn't exactly Rampage. I have the same reservation with the best top frameless soft tops as well. And here's the advantage to them is they ran in their kind of most basic configuration. You can run them as like a bikini or a bimini or a safari top, right?
Well, and when you were in that situation where money's tight and your top is just junk.
That's true.
Back in the day, CJ7s and YJs, they had such intricate or bow systems that kind of fought with you.
Yes.
And they would snap and break, or the mounts would break. And you're in that situation where you're like, I don't literally have anything.
Right.
That's where the frameless really shines.
Came onto the scene, 15 years ago, and it really made a big impact.
Yes.
The downside is if it is even remotely chilly, so, if it's remotely cold or those side panels and rear panel have been a little wadded up in the Jeep throughout the day, and you're trying to pull over on the side of the road and immediately get that back into position,
you just keep driving.
You're screwed, right? So frameless soft tops realistically are, given their structure, because of their tauntness, the tightness of which they are installed on and around the roll bars of the Jeeps. So then you get into your traditional line of framed soft tops, which arguably, if you have your window panels with you,
you're pretty good shape.
Should be able to put up and down. Now, obviously, your trade-off is you have this framed system that's riding around with you.
Yep.
You have diminished your cargo carrying capacity in the back because, of course, it kind of takes up space, and you need your windows and your side panels, right? Yes. So, within reason, you can buy from mild to wild, right? Soft tops are and kind of an outrageous market at the moment.
But then the biggest thing, though, if you're doing that, then you're probably keeping the doors on, and nobody wants to do that if you're at that point. Because if you what point of having the top if you have no doors?
That's true. Except for
I was gonna say we literally just had a couple people talk about how they have their top on with no doors.
Yeah, I mean, at that point in
I'm
time, you're
talking
not
about
getting
a soft top though.
Yeah, you're not getting the direct water in, I suppose, at that rate.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally done it with mine where I have the top folded back and a little sprinkle or storm will pop up. I'll throw the top down, the door's off, as long as it's not heavy wind.
And there is an advantage to that. There is a little bit, and we'll get to that in just a brief moment as to why you may still want to do that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, understanding that right now the product offerings for the JLs and JTs, and it's so funny because I hear the JL JT owners lamenting how leaky and how cumbersome their soft tops are.
Yeah.
I want you to know you've got it better than any Jeep in the history of Jeeps.
Yes.
Okay? So if you
The older you go, the worse it is.
if you for an iota of a moment want to fuss around me about your soft top on your JL or JT, I'm going to tell you where to go and how to get there because I've absolutely fought in the middle of the night to get up a YJ, early model YJ top, which is basically a CJ top.
Yes.
In a desperate attempt to protect my ill-advised teenage sound system that I had to have in my Jeep, right? So
and you haven't lived unless you are in such a vintage Jeep with a soft top and soft doors. And the faster you go, the more out the top of the doors,
the more the doors
go,
open up
because that's what happens.
Yes.
And then things come in.
Yes.
And you have all the top up.
Your top is up and all the elements come right back in.
Yeah.
Right? But then you get to this kind of happy medium. If you are physically, I don't want to say unable or not inclined to be able to put your top up and down, we do service and sell a product called My Top.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a perfect product, but honestly, none of the soft top options out there are perfect products. And I think that's what's really valuable for our listeners at home. That is our stance. There are no perfect products.
Yep.
When it comes to any of our brick-shaped vehicles. Even your hardtop can leak periodically.
Yes. And really, you have to stop and think, like, if you have a soft top or any soft, pliable thing, because even a bikini needs maintenance. If you don't do any maintenance on it and it just sits out and bakes in the sun, your life expectancy of that is diminished greatly.
Absolutely.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So it doesn't matter if it's a power top or a bikini or just a stock soft top. You have to clean and maintain it to keep the good use.
That's a great talking point. What is the maintenance for those tops?
So it depends on the era. We'll start in the CJ realm where you kind of have something of a top. You want to obviously clean your zippers, keep them lubricated, and you want to do something.
That one is critical because you will break the zipper if you don't.
Yes, and you want to do something with the windows and the canvas itself. Obviously, Best Top has a product that's been around forever that we can get for you that has a multi-step process for cleaning it and then polishing the windows and maintaining that. And it's no different than polishing your hood or something painted surface. You have to do that regularly. And then you also want to make sure that when you're taking it down, that you're not doing what we've all done and laying it somewhere that gets moldy or wet or damp and it holds it there, because you're not coming back from that very easy.
No, and if those plastics on the windows get kind of bent over, and they sit there for any period of time, they may actually remember their crease, and arguably forever.
If you store a soft top in a shed and a tire accidentally falls onto a window, you may see the imprint of the tire for the rest of the time.
Well, the other thing too is if
oddly specific, Scott. I wonder, do you have any experience with it?
Maybe.
Well, and the other thing too is if you take those windows off and it's hot and you roll them or crease them like you said, it's easy to do because they're pliable.
Yeah.
But then when it gets colder, you go to put it back on and you try to pull it apart.
They shatter.
They'll shatter.
Yeah. We may or may not have a friend that accidentally put a snow brush through a window in a snowstorm.
Yes, because of the not pliability of them. And and in that shed storage position, you know, recognize that critters do love the canvas.
All of it.
You know, anything that they can chew on, they'll nest in them. And I can't begin to tell you how many tops over the years we have, you know, replaced or tried to revive because of critter intrusion.
Yes.
But, you know, all of this aside, that power top is, that my top is one that is literally a powered top. It is a custom made product that allows you to treat your Jeep more like a traditional powered convertible top.
Yes.
It's a unique product. And of course, in that situation, if the impending pop-up storm was happening, that's probably the most user-friendly. But it is also the highest cost of entry.
Yes.
And it, you know,
you
for
can totally look like you're putting Grey Poupon on your toast while you're under the overpass, while the motorcyclists are stuck there, and you're just hitting a button and the top going
and putting it up. Right.
And then you drive off in comfort.
And the challenge to that is that despite the money that you'll pay, despite the Grey Poupon perceived experience that will come your way,
yes,
it is still not perfect. It's still not going to completely keep out all the leaks and drips and seals, you know, so on and so forth.
Correct.
And that is a really tough conversation to go, hey, I'm going to go, you know, $4,000 to $6,000 deep and I'm still going to get some water intrusion. Yes. Yep. And that really stinks, but that's the reality of our brick-shaped, you know, off-road toys. Off-road and on-road toys. Yeah. And so, of course, then I think your flip side of that is going to be a hard top, which then, you know, you might be a Scott character who just leaves it on all the time, but then maybe you're a character who has a lift mechanism in your garage that, you know, there's going to be a couple days of poor weather, you put the top back on, a couple days of good weather, you lift the top off.
And with that said, again, speaking from experience, we have a hard top for my wife's Jeep. It goes on in the fall, mainly for storage. And if I park it outside, the rear window leaks like a sieve, like a broken fish tank. It isn't a great, you know, it's as good as it could be in the 80s, pretty much. Again, TJs aren't too bad.
Yeah.
I think overall.
They leak at the back door seal almost always, the rear hatch, the door.
But in the whole scheme of things, compared to other things, they're not too bad.
Right.
JK have the suffering of door seal and freedom panel seals.
Yep.
Because it's a T-top, so of course it's going to leak.
T-tops leak. They leaked in the 70s and 80s when T-tops were cool. And absolutely, we forgot as an industry. I didn't forget, folks. No. I didn't. I'm telling you right now, they leak then, they leak now.
As they age, it's going to get worse. I would say, again, the LJT, that's the best possible, but you're still going to have something, and especially as they age and those seals get worn.
Yep. And the technology in them from the CJ and how complicated they were to the JLJT platform. I mean, on my JT, I can have the entire top and doors off or back on in under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You were not doing that on a TJ either.
No. Especially if the sun went down.
Yeah.
Just give up. Get out the tarp, put it over the Jeep.
The tarp, put
try again tomorrow.
Yes. Yes. All right. So now the last part of this program, and this I hope you have stayed awake and you're engaged long enough to be this part of the program. What do you do if you have now in fact got caught in said pop-up storm and the water has soaked you and your Jeep to the bone? So what is the game plan?
Depends on your era of Jeep.
Okay.
If it's a CJ and older, you pretty much go meh, and you let the seats dry out in the sun.
Wow.
Relatively.
Wow.
If you have
underwhelming,
and then Scott deals with all the corrosion later.
Yes, and Scott fusses about it constantly.
That is true. In various states.
Yes.
But as you get newer and you get more electronics, I think it's best to wipe things off as best you can. Let it start to air dry and dry out. So again, that mold situation doesn't happen. If you're Jeff, the carpet's already out, so that's helping.
And that's what I was about to say. We're operating from the pretense that your carpet and stuff is already out. But first thing I choose for our customers, pull your floor drains.
Yes.
That's why we have them.
Yep. Yeah. And if they're not pulled already,
not pulled already,
be familiar with where they are and how many there are. I bet you there's more than you think.
And pull your floor drains, pull your carpets out.
Yeah.
Start there, right?
Let them air dry and sun dry as best you can.
Because even that residual moisture, if they retain it in the carpet, you go, hey, I've pulled my floor drains, but I leave my carpet in.
Yeah.
That residual moisture can build mildew, and then ultimately, you can build up humidity and other issues. Bad stuff. God forbid you have mold in your Jeep, but if you get the Jeep saturated and you drain it, but you put the doors back on and you have the hard top on, because God, I don't want to get that. I don't want that to happen again.
The next day when you go to get in and all your windows are fogged on the inside.
Correct.
And you have rain coming from the inside of the top.
And that is what we want you to avoid, right?
Yeah.
Because that really then becomes a permeating moisture that is.
You have a water cycle in your vehicle.
You have a water cycle. You've created, what's that?
A humidor.
Yes.
For cigars.
Okay. I don't know why his brain went there.
I don't know why his brain went there.
That's
I was
fine.
like, most people would say greenhouse, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
You don't even smoke cigars.
Okay.
Why would you bring up?
How about guitars? For
Deer.
guitars too.
Oh, deer. Okay. Where? I got 360-degree options. Just yelling deer does not help me.
His brain went to humidor. I can't even
what it is.
say it. I don't even know if I saw one, what it would look like.
Right. So we want you to avoid having apparently a humidor
water cycle
vehicle
in your vehicle.
Because
Is this episode over yet?
specifically with our later model Jeeps, there is so many intricate electronics that would be, the contacts in them will be sensitive. We know what happens when our phones get a brief exposure to
bags with rice come out.
Bags with rice. We cannot.
It's really hard to do your dash.
That's really hard to do to your dash.
Yeah.
Now additionally, there is a challenge with. There is actually a couple modules in our later model JK Wranglers. And I have not seen them in the JL specifically, but I'm assuming they're down there. Specifically, there's an airbag module located under your center console. And if the water builds up,
resistant, but not waterproof.
And I have had quite a few customer Jeeps where that is one of our primary modules. Now, the challenge with our interior wiring is because of CAN bus. You can have one module, your wiper switch could have shorted.
Yeah.
And it could make it seem like your dash is bad, right?
Well, the Jeep's possessed.
The Jeep is possessed.
Not only that, but sometimes it can take out multiple modules in sequence, which we've also seen.
100%. Absolutely, 100%.
And that's
it's very challenging.
In that unfortunate situation, the best thing you can do is just dry it out as quickly as you can. Like I said, start wiping things down. Get your leaf blower out, start blowing it out, get that stuff dry as fast as you can.
I would honestly say that if you can, and I know that you may not be able to, and so the damage might be done, but a best case scenario, if you can not run the vehicle from the time that it gets soaked, let's say that you drive it home and you're in a downpour, right?
Yeah.
You get it home, if you can get it to the leaf blower, carpet out, drain plugs out, and not drive it for 3 to 5 days, that is going to be to your best advantage to preserve the electronics, because the electronics are water resistant, like you said.
It's the same idea with powering your phone off until it's dry enough.
Yeah.
If you power it back on when there's moisture in there, now you're introducing more problems.
Right, because ultimately, and it's value to say, water is a conductor, right?
Yeah.
We know this. And so if it's jumping across basically your ground and your hot circuit, or your ground and your call circuit, or your action circuit, which is basically, communicating back to the vehicle, then that you could have continuity
and
because
you
of
could
the
short
moisture.
something out.
And you could short something out. And that's really the worst, is when people drive through the wetness and then they try to drive it for 1 or 2 days. Post that, you're shorting out modules and making it worse.
Yeah, put it in the garage, let it air out.
Stick it in the sun once it high dries out from there.
Yeah.
And try to get the system to kind of return to an ambient experience on its own.
Daddy Jeep says once you get the carpet and the drain plugs out, throw them away. Problem solved. No, I did.
Spoken like a true YJ owner.
I did take the, the carpet out, but I left the drain plugs in just simply because of the road noise.
Okay. And
Spoken
I've heard
like a true JLJT owner.
JLJT owner right there, as far as I'm concerned. I've also heard you leave them out, and now road grime comes up through and settles. I've heard it all in that regard. I don't think, again, it's kind of like the conversation with the soft tops. It's not a perfect science.
No, but I do want to clarify that they are drain plugs for the water to drain out, not for all those other things that people are telling you to do on road trips.
Oh, jeez. Jeffrey.
Why is Jeff?
I don't know.
Jeff is talking about urinating while driving, I think.
That's gross.
What are you?
Are you speaking
Jeff,
from experience?
What have you contributed to this?
It's been downhill since deer. Really has.
I really feel like we need
Jeff
to allow
is
this.
such a wheel man. He doesn't want to take pit stops, obviously.
No, I do. I will take all the pit stops. I'm telling
Speaking
people I don't
from
want to work
experience.
on a Jeep that they're peeing down that.
Who is peeing?
I think he has experience with
Jeffrey, I feel like
Rip says no more coffee cake.
we have desperately tried to maintain a professional
it.
decorum.
And then it gets a Jeff.
And then Jeff just takes it and goes, woo! Of course. And I'm just not sure what to do about
Right?
this. I just, oh my gosh. We need to be done with this program because what will Jeff say next needs to be the reason we end this today. I think we've covered sufficiently the different types of tops and our interest in you trying to stay
and
dry.
Don't do in your Jeep.
Yes, what to do and don't do this week when we're dealing with some of these high temps and your AC or non-AC scenarios. If you do get caught in a pop-up storm, try to seek some shelter. If the Jeep does get soaked, rip out the carpet, the drain plugs, get it to dry out, let it sit for a couple days in the hot sun. Try to not get it reintroduced to that fluid. Or that rain, that is really the fluid we're talking about, Jeffrey.
Yes.
I
And
appreciate
next
that.
week we'll be talking about hot, and how did our Jeeps fare in these high temperatures sweeping the nation as we know it. This was a doozy.
Yes,
This
it
was a
was.
doozy. As a continuation, happy Father's Day to all of our listeners. And we got some Jeeps to work on. Until then, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.